Hi, welcome to Cal Conversations. I'm Beth Hadfield, the Activities Coordinator at the Center for Active Living. And today I have Buz Artiano, owner of Buildex. Welcome, Buz.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Good. So today we're going to talk about ADUs.
My favorite subject.
And that is such a hot topic in Plymouth right now. But I thought we would start with, what does ADU mean? What does it stand for?
Sure. So ADU stands for Accessory Dwelling Unit, which was a term that's been coined for a long time. I didn't want to say it started in California, but that was the early days of California starting to allow some people refer to them as granny flats or, detached buildings. It's not a tiny house. It's an accessory dwelling unit.
Okay. And Plymouth changed the laws last year?
In May-ish of 24, they passed their own bylaw. And then in February of 25, the state passed their own law, which the two of them very closely mirror each other.
Okay, so by saying they passed the law, what does that exactly mean?
Sure. So in Plymouth, they passed their own bylaw allowing accessory dwelling units as of right, which means no special permits, in any residential zone in the town of Plymouth, with a couple provisos that you need to meet the zoning setback and that you need to have at least one parking spot, and then you need to prove to the Board of Health that, well, if you have a sewer connection, then get permission to hook up to the sewer, or if you have a septic, you need to work out the septic issue. That is by far the trickiest part, is to know and to plan out what to do with the septic system.
Okay. Now, knowing those pieces, where does the ADU land on the property? Is it beside the house? Is it farther away from the house? Is it in the house?
So everything I'm going to say is based on Plymouth's laws.
Okay, yes, that would be perfect.
So there is a state law that, more or less supersedes it. Plymouth has their own bylaw, which is very well written.
Okay.
And it's excellent to work with.
Okay.
So everything I'm about to say only applies to Plymouth. So Plymouth does allow you to place the ADU anywhere on the lot as long as you meet the zoning setbacks. And those setbacks vary by area of town that you're in.
Okay.
But generally it's 15 feet from the rear and the sides, and 20 or 40 feet from the front, depending on where you're at. But it could be different. We have one underway right now in Jessica Way in Plymouth, and that particular setback is 70 feet from the street, and then 15 and 15 from the side and 15 from the rear. So every zoning area in Plymouth has its built-in setbacks already available to you, and it's all available online.
How does it work if you built it in your existing dwelling, so in your home?
So correct. So that's a good point. So accessory dwelling units can be a conversion inside your house. They can be attached or they can be detached.
Okay.
So they can be all, or a combination of those things. They could be partially in and attached, or could be all the way in.
Okay.
Right. And if you're going in the existing dwelling, you're going to need to deal with the egress in and out, and make sure that it's going to be legal for someone to inhabit that space. So there's proper egress. You need to have two means of egress, which is
two ways to get out.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the bedrooms themselves will need to have egress compliant bedroom windows that have to have a 20 by 24 opening, and they have to be no more than 44 inches off the floor.
Okay. So, but everybody's So let's talk about basements for a minute.
Sure.
Most basements are underground?
They are. There are a lot of raised ranches in Plymouth.
Oh, okay.
You know,
all right.
there's a lot of Pulte product that was built in the ponds of Plymouth.
Okay.
This actually lends itself. Most of those are already finished in the basement, but probably maybe some aren't. But you know, even your typical full basement in the ground, you could convert that to an accessory dwelling unit. You'd have to do some excavation,
Right.
you know, add some additional egress, maybe put a large window well for the, you know, window. But if you have a large basement that's unfinished and you have sufficient ceiling height, you need at least 6'8" finished. So you probably need about 7'6", before mechanicals.
Okay.
But you definitely could, with some work, make a standard full foundation into an accessory dwelling unit.
Now, who, in your experience, because I know you've been building them for a bit now, who are you seeing more utilizing them? Are you seeing parents, grandparents? Are you seeing more children, or are you seeing completely separate, just someone looking for maybe a little extra income?
So, again, these are all my opinions, right?
Okay.
The rental market, the cost of construction versus what you will get for rent does not make financial sense.
Okay.
So I think you'll see very little rental being built. Now, that being said, if you build something very inexpensive and very small, it may work for rental. But that's not my market. My market is users, people that need additional housing. So to get back to your original question, there's really 3 stories that happen.
Okay.
I've had over 160 Zooms. We have 8 under construction right now and another 6 in permitting. So I've heard a lot of stories, and we have open houses every week. If you want to go to my website, there's a banner that runs across the top, and it always tells you where we're having an ADU open house, and that's a live banner, so that someone wants to actually come, because the first thing they want to see is how big is 900 square feet, can I live in it, right? So why look at a set of plans, come to one of my open houses, and you'll be able to actually walk an ADU. So the 3 stories, if you will, or 3 lifestyles that have to happen is parents have a big original family home. Maybe one is getting ill or one has passed away, and a child lives somewhere between 10 and 10 hours away. And, the parent needs additional help. So they're going to sell the primary home, and they're going to build an ADU on the child's backyard.
Okay.
Right? So that's scenario number 1. The scenario number 2 is the reverse of that. The child has outgrown the home that they have now. They're going to buy the family home, build an ADU for the parents, and the parents are going to stay on site but go into the ADU.
Okay.
There's a variation of that where the child is not married yet. They build the ADU, and at some point they swap.
Gotcha.
Right? They get married. They have some children. They say, okay, Mom, I need a bigger house now. You go in the ADU. So that happens too. And then the third scenario, which is about 20% of our customers, is someone in the family has some type of disability.
Okay.
Whether it neurodivergent, or they have autoimmune, or they have a physical handicap, and the family member doesn't want them living off-site. Group housing.
Right.
Inexpensive apartment. Well, they just can't help. They can't help them. They can't keep. They can't
Not
keep
that far away.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't help them.
Even if it's 10 minutes away, it's still 10 minutes away. You're not going to get there every day. You're just not.
Right.
Right. Versus 30 feet in the backyard, or 60, or even 100 feet away. It's a big difference.
So
those are the primary people.
Primary ways we end up having the ADU.
Yeah.
So first thing I guess I want to say is I chose to interview you because we are also having you come speak at the Center for Active Living on Thursday, July 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. And we've called this program the ABCs of ADUs. We thought it was a great title.
I like it.
It's a great way to have people come in and meet you and then see plans and hear what you have to say. I know you're doing a whole presentation.
No, it's great. I'm really looking forward to it. this is all I talk about all day long. My wife's sick to me talking about enough with the ADUs. We have 10 standard plans on our website, free downloads, and those are starting points. Those are beginnings of conversation. We can change those any way you'd like, but at least it's a place to start.
So after we planned all of this, I saw your sign in Manomet. Tell me I don't know.
44 Bartlett Road.
Yes, Bartlett Road. And I went up, and I too, in my mind, I know there's a certain square footage for the ADU. What is that?
It's called gross floor area.
Okay.
And simply put, it means you can measure, instead of measure the outside perimeter of the house, you're going to measure from the inside face of the outside wall.
Okay.
So if you have a 2x6 wall, you're going to pick up 6 inches all the way around, which makes a big difference on a 900 square foot house.
So all the ADUs are 900 square feet that you build outside of the house?
So no, we have some models that are 551 square feet, 750, 800. It can be anywhere from 900 down. I won't go smaller than 500.
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense. That's tiny home territory. Below 500. And honestly, you don't save any money by going less sub 500, because if you think about it, you still have to have a septic connection, electrical connection, a kitchen, a washer dryer, all of this kind of bathroom. There's like a minimum cost to build these things.
Right.
And then, yes, it is a little less expensive to go from 900 to 551, but it's not a straight line.
Gotcha. Okay. So I got to see the one on Bartlett Road, and I honestly was utterly amazed at how large it was. In my mind, I thought it was a tiny home. Yeah. And so that was the first thing. So at least for that particular model, physically seeing it, I loved it. That model, I don't think had a basement.
It does not. That has a crawl space.
Okay.
So number one rule, don't ever build on a slab unless you have to. Now, there are times when you need to build on a concrete slab, water table, whatever that is.
Okay.
But that should be the exception, not the rule. Do a crawl space. If you're trying to be budget friendly with your build, the crawl space is your most budget friendly option.
Okay.
So that's my advice to the audience. A lot of people think slab is cheaper, and it's actually not. It's more expensive because we still need to put those walls in for the crawl space. Then we need to put all the dirt inside. Then we need to dig back out for mechanicals. Then we need to pour a concrete slab in and build the house. So it's actually a lot more work.
It sounds like it is more work.
It is definitely a lot more work.
Can an ADU have a basement?
So the answer is maybe.
Okay. So it depends on...
Well, so I'm going to speak about Plymouth. So far in Plymouth, the answer has been yes.
Okay.
And the building department's been great to work with. I will say they have an online portal for their permitting. It's fantastic to use, and it's very simple. And kudos to them, because I do permit in a lot of other towns, and a lot of other towns aren't as friendly to ADUs. And then the building process, the permitting process is not as friendly. So shout out to whoever is running that department, because they're doing a great job.
Awesome. So... you talked about water tables and things like that. So I'm sure those are the pieces that come into play when it's slab versus basement.
So there's a lot. So first of all, the family not understanding this, a year ago when I started, now a year later, I feel like I really have a good handle on the dynamics of this process. So the number one dynamic is the family dynamics.
Okay.
So people, I've had a lot of customers say, yes, we want to build it. And then all of a sudden the family gets together, and say there's 3 siblings and one set of parents, or maybe there's 2 parents and they're divorced. Who's going to get the mom? Who's going to get the dad? There's estate planning involved, and money and inheritance, and, they're selling the house, and there's a large equity there. And so that is, I tell everyone that's thinking about ADU, really talk about the family dynamics before you get to the building process, because that's almost the easy process. I don't know if you remember that show Billions, where they had the in-house psychologist that was...
No.
Anyways, I was joking the other day that we need an in-house family counselor to go and work with the families, because it's very dynamic.
It is.
And I didn't anticipate that element of it. So that's been interesting. Then the next item that's the wild card is the site work. So how are we going to get electricity there, the water, and especially the septic system?
Okay.
The septic is the game piece mover, if you will, because we may say that we want to put the ADU here, but the septic may have to go there, or we may have to upgrade the existing septic. So all that has to be worked up front. We can make some educated guesses in the planning, in the beginning planning, but working through that septic and site work conditions takes the most time.
Okay. All right. Now, you talked a little bit about, oh my God, I forgot what it's called.
Crawl space.
Applying for the permit. So is it actually easy to apply for the permit and then you...
It really is. Once we know we're going to build an ADU, the first step is to hire a land surveyor.
Okay.
Because we need to get a survey of the existing property, unless you have one, but most people don't, right? So up to date. So an existing conditions plan up to date. And then the next step, if we're on, everything I'm saying is based on septic. Sewer is a different conversation, but majority of Plymouth is septic. So the next step is to figure out the septic. Can the existing system support an additional bedroom? Maybe not. At a minimum, even if the leaching field can support another bedroom, at a minimum, you're going to need the DEP passed some regulations that you have to add another tank at least. So you could go from the house, the ADU, to a tank to the leaching field. For the most part, you're either going to have to upgrade the existing septic system, or you can put an additional system on you. You can have multiple septic systems on your lot.
Oh, okay.
So that's what Bartlett Road ended up being the best option.
Right.
So that's kind of that give and take that goes on in that process. Once you have the septic figured out and you have your existing plan, they will draw you a zoning plan. You apply for a zoning permit on the online portal. That's usually a week to 2 weeks. You get that back. At that point, the septic plans has already been at the Board of Health. Assuming that's been approved, you then file for the building permit. And then the last one, I think, was 21 days. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it seems like it moves fairly quickly.
Like I said,
once the decisions are made. But I guess I didn't think about that side, and I'm kind of chuckling as I sit here. But I could really see how family dynamics sort of stand in your way a little bit. So are you getting a counseling degree when you go sit and talk?
Well, I've been building for a long time, so I wouldn't say that I'm a counselor, but I certainly am sympathetic to what's going on.
Truly.
And what I say to all my potential clients is you need a team. So you need a builder. We need a surveyor. We need probably an estate planning or an elder law specialist.
Right.
And then we're going, at some point, probably going to need a broker or a real estate agent to dispose of one or more properties to make all this work.
Right.
So, and maybe a mortgage lender as well. So there's a team, and so I act as the quarterback on some of this. Obviously, the family planning, I stay out of that, but I can, give them information about what pricing is going to affect and what that is. But they need to work with their own family counsel, because there's a lot of things they have to think about. So, inheritance tax, Medicaid trusts, how the money's going to be tied up. There's a lot.
There is a lot. And we know that. And those are things that we talk about very regularly at the Center for Active Living. We have lots of different people come and speak about all of those things very regularly, because one person can explain it in a different way that clicks with someone else,
100%.
and then they see it from a different perspective, and they're like, okay, now I understand. And but they also have to learn how to talk to their families too, because family dynamics is everything, and it can really make or break things.
100%. And if there's only one child, then it's an easier conversation. If there's multiple children, and maybe some of those children live out of state,
Right.
right? And then there's grandchild involved, or
Right.
so it's a as many ways you can slice it.
Yes.
It comes that way. So
True.
that's why I counsel people in the beginning. Listen, you really need a team, and is this something that you really want to do? Let's talk about some budgetary guidance,
Right.
Which I can give them very quickly.
Right.
Let's talk about maybe where it goes on the lot, which we can do very quickly online, and then talk about budget again, and then process. But then at that point, they really need to decide what that mechanism looks like.
Right.
And sometimes it takes a long time. I have people that I was speaking to last year that have more or less just finally worked that out a year later.
Wow.
And we're getting ready to move forward.
So, talking on that, a little bit ago you said the ADU can be built anywhere from about 550 to 900 square feet. So, obviously, when you're at the center and we're having this conversation on July 31st, we'll be able to look at plans up on the screen. You'll be able to hand out, some layouts so people will be able to see it. But maybe in our conversation, we can kind of give people an overview. Is every ADU a 2-bedroom? Do they all have kitchen, living room? Like, how does the breakdown of the design work?
Yeah. So the answer is yes.
To everything. Great.
All of the
Okay.
above. All of the above. So again, I'll pick on Bartlett Road.
Okay.
So that's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath with a full kitchen and a living room on a crawl space, and that was designed with the owner. So that's the stepdad that's moving in there.
Okay.
And work with Keely and Adam, the owners. And Keely was actually very instrumental in that design. She and I spent, 15-ish hours on Zoom going back and forth. And I liked that model so much I made it the X3, the Haven. So shout out to Keely on that design. And then all the designs that are on my website were all based on customer conversations.
Okay.
So but again, there are starting points. It's very often, I have one coming up in Norwell where we started with the X9 and we've made substantial changes to the interior layout, and now it's the way they want it. So they're all conversation starters. So to answer your question, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom is legal. It would be really small bedrooms.
Okay.
And for the most part, I see 1-bedroom with a spare office or a bedroom.
Okay.
And then 1 to 1.5 baths.
Oh, because the one on Bartlett Road's a 1 bath.
It is.
Okay. Yeah. And so let's talk about bathrooms for a minute. If we're putting a parent or someone with maybe a handicap,
yeah.
How?
Future mobility issues as well, right?
Right. And we do always need to look ahead because
100%.
life changes.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes, unfortunately, you're right. Are all of the are all ADUs accessible?
No.
Okay.
They are not. Mine are.
Okay.
I have customers send me plans regularly that they find online because they like the look of the outside.
Okay.
And then we start talking about the inside, and the bathroom is 7 by 9. It's from the 1970s. The toilet is shoved up against the shower. There's no linen closet. And I'm not sure who draws those plans, but if you're listening, please stop drawing them that way because no one can live that way anymore. That's that time is gone, right? So all of my plans are, 3-foot interior doors for accessibility, accessible shower areas. We can either make a tub shower. For the most part, we're doing a full, just a regular shower, or we also have a roll-in shower, grab bars. And if people don't want the grab bars today, we future-proof it. We put all the blocking in ahead of time.
Okay, good to know.
We have detailed drawings of that. So when that day comes and you call me 10 years from now and say, we really need to put the grab bars up, I'll bring that up on the computer and I'll say, put it here, put it here, put it here. Or I'll just say, hey, go get the grab bars. I'll send one of my guys by and we'll screw it on the wall for you. It's going to take 10 minutes because we already know where everything is.
Everything is.
Yeah.
And grab bars, I'm assuming, go only in certain places anyway,
So-
or is it depends on
Yeah,
the owner?
Yeah, it depends on the person's mobility issue.
Okay.
I mean, there are ones that just go flat, and then there are ones that start vertical and transition that way. There are floor-mounted ones.
It depends.
Yeah, and there's all, and you may transition out of one model to another, and depending on what your, motion issue is, oftentimes if we know up front that someone has a motion issue, we'll bring them in the bathroom before we mount anything, and we'll simulate, their movements. Stand in the shower. How would you get in? Just put your hand out naturally. Where would you reach for? Because if someone's 6 foot tall versus someone that's 5 foot tall or shorter even,
Right.
We really, just because the code says put it this height, may not make, this doesn't have to be the code. It can be,
Okay.
it's custom to the person,
Okay.
right? So if there's someone that grabs like this, or maybe they don't have use of one arm,
Right.
so we need to change that around. That's
Right.
all adjustable. And honestly, I've tried every way. The only way to do that is get the person in the space.
Okay.
And, sequence it. Say, okay, now you're going to do this function. Now you're going to do this. Now you're going to do that.
Okay.
And then I'll watch what they're doing, and then we'll mock up.
Mock it up.
Yeah, mock it up,
right.
and then it works for them.
So our
That was a long
time
answer.
our time is actually up, and I have so many more questions. So I guess I'm gonna have to hold on to all of those questions until
told you we'd run out of time.
We would run out of time. You are right. Thursday, July 31st at 1:30 at the Center for Active Living. Buz Artiano will be back from Buildex doing a whole presentation talking about ADUs. Please come to the center. Buz has been wonderful to chat with. His ADU was beautiful, and I enjoyed seeing the one on Bartlett Road. So thank you again for joining us today. Thank you for joining me today.
Yes.
And we will see you again soon. Take care.